Welcome to the People's Guild. If you are invested in Splinterlands or if you are just curious about Splinterlands, then this podcast is for you.
All right. Well, welcome back to the People's Guild. We've got another week, another fantastic episode lined up for you guys. We've been blessed with the presence of the Wizard of Web himself, the dreamer of code, the one and only Cryptomancer. So welcome to the People's Guild, Cryptomancer. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to stop by.
Howdy, thanks. It's really good to be here. Looking forward to talking with you guys.
There's so much things we want to speak to you about, but Splinterfest happened a few weeks ago now, but I know it was your first time to meet lots of the team. So I'm just interested to find out your highlights from Splinterfest. And also I know you took some time after Splinterfest to travel around the Vegas area. So what were your highlights from that as well?
Splinterfest was amazing. So yeah, as you said, it was kind of the first time that I've gotten to meet everybody on the team myself and also interact with a bunch of the players face to face. And that was one of the most fun parts for me, being able to match up faces to the names. You see all these familiar names on Discord all the time, but now I was able to be like, oh, hey, yeah, that's who you are. It's really nice to see everyone and see the excitement everyone had for being there. We had people coming from all over the world. And I noticed lots of people enjoyed going around collecting all of the team members' business cards. So I know I was just handing my cards out left and right. Got through most of my box of cards there. And that for me was the other most enjoyable aspect of Splinterfest, just trying to collect a full set of the team cards. And yeah, it was an unforgettable experience for sure.
Man, I got to tell you, I think having kind of seen everybody flashing the business cards and the artwork on Twitter and Peaked and elsewhere, and I'm not brown nosing by any means, but I think you were granted the coolest of the artwork, and I hope I did you some justice with the thumbnail creation, man.
Oh, thanks for that. I also happen to think it's one of the coolest cards myself. Yeah, I love what you did with the avatar there, combining that with the Japanese cherry blossom theme. That was nice.
Yeah, I figured that's what a wizard would do on his day off is peep some cherry blossoms and take in the sights.
What else would you do?
Nice, man. So I've kind of heard, and I'm not prying you for any kind of alpha drop in news, but kind of heard through the grapevine that Philippine Splinterfest sounds like a fairly reasonable possibility for 2023. I assume that if Splinterfest comes to this side of the world, you would be making an appearance and handing out some signed cards as well.
I have heard a lot of people talking about that, and it's purely speculation at this point. So I don't think any sort of official decision has been made about where to host the next Splinterfest. There are lots of reasons for keeping it in the States for the time being, just because the logistics are a lot easier. But I know there's a large player base in Asia and other parts of the world, and a lot of people would love to have it in the Philippines. And I myself think it would be really cool to have it migrate from country to country each year in a different region, so that we can kind of cover all the areas of the world. I don't know how realistic that is or exactly what the plans are for the next few. So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I wonder how difficult it would be to achieve something like that. The main team is in the US, right? So I just wonder how could that be achieved to have a Splinterfest in somewhere so far away?
Yeah, to have it in another country, we'd probably have to have people on the ground in that country first to kind of scope out the venues and figure out the logistics and how to comply with local laws and all that sort of stuff. So I think it does add a much higher level of complexity than having it in the States, where the organizers are already familiar with how things work.
So,
think
like,
as
would you
we,
be interested in Splinterfest Japan then? Like, do you think that would be something you'd be able to get your teeth stuck into?
I definitely think it would be fun to have one here in Tokyo, and I have mentioned that to them. But again, I don't know when that might be a serious possibility. Um, I think it makes sense as Splinterlands grows to look at doing it in other countries. Um, but for the time being, I don't know if we really have the resources to pull that off, or if it would be worth it from a logistics point of view. So that's something that we're going to have to talk about internally, and we're going to see how that plays out. So I just don't know is the easy answer for now. I personally would love to have it in different countries. Like for me, it was a very challenging going to the US and actually making it to Las Vegas to take part. COVID-19 still makes international travel rough sometimes, and Japan has just started opening up to the world again. So that was an added wrinkle to deal with. I did stay in Las Vegas for a few more days after Splinterfest, just because I figured it was so difficult to make the trip there. I had to kind of enjoy it and enjoy being in Las Vegas a little bit. So I did some sightseeing, took in some of the shows. I even did a helicopter ride over the Grand Canyon. So
Nice.
that was really incredible.
Awesome. So speaking in hypothetical and purely hypothetical, if Splinterfest manages to find its way in the capital there in Japan, in Tokyo, where would be the first place that we meet up for a little bit of dinner and welcome party? Where would you demand? What is the number one recommendation from Cryptomancer for Japanese food?
Well, I don't know about Japanese food specifically. I was thinking Mexican. There's in Ikebukuro, which is one of the downtown districts of Tokyo, there is a really great Mexican restaurant called El Torito. I highly recommend that for any gatherings. One of my favorite places in Tokyo.
Well, when in Rome, right? That's what they say.
Yep. For Japanese food, there are some really good places in Shinjuku. I highly recommend shabu shabu, which is kind of like a hot pot of thinly sliced meat and veggies, all thrown together and boiled in a simmering pot, kind of like a stew. It's really, really good.
Yeah, there's a really cool Japanese ramen place over here in Tainan. It's like got all 80s decor and yeah, they just play solely 80s music. So that's my favorite Japanese one over here. I was going to ask as well, like today, in less than 24 hours now, it's Rooney minting time. I see currently you have 12 Roonies. Have you got any more plans to add to that collection?
But Rooney, I'm really excited about Rooney. Oh, I'm really sorry. Hold on just a minute. There's
That's all good. Go ahead, man.
I've been waiting for. Apologies.
No worries.
No
That's all
problem.
good.
Okay.
We were just talking about Mexican food being the prime spot. I actually for all the listeners, I don't know if it would make total sense, but for me, I grew up a stone's throw from Mexico. I love Mexican food. I miss Mexican food so much, and it's so hard to find good, legitimate Mexican food here. So, I think everybody was expecting you to say like hot pot or a good ramen spot or okonomiyaki or something exotic, and for you to throw out Mexican food is both hysterical and very relatable.
Well, one of the things about Tokyo, I mean, when people think about Japan, they think about Japanese food, sushi, tempura, etc. But the thing about Tokyo is it's a very international city. So there are tons of different varieties of food here from all over the world. You've got your Chinese food, your Indian food, your Thai food, and your Vietnamese food, your Malaysian food, your English food. I mean, all over the world, anything you could possibly want, you can find it here. And that's one of the things I really like about the city, the sheer variety of restaurants. So like I might eat Japanese food a couple times a month when I go out, but other times I'll go to Italian restaurants, or I really like Indian curry and naan bread. So there's a lot to choose from here. One of the great things about the city.
Nice.
So have you been living in Tokyo for your whole time in Japan?
I have, yes. So that's about 20 years now.
Mm.
Holy moly. Good for you, man. How did you and I definitely want to go back to the Rooney conversation, but since we've kind of gone down the rabbit hole of travels and foreign lands, I'm curious, how did you manage to find your way to the world of Splinterlands? What brought you there?
So before I was working for Splinterlands, I was working in the finance industry for several big global banks here in Tokyo. And I worked on trading software. So I'd be one of the guys that would sit on the trading floor, and I'd go talk to the traders and gather their requirements and then figure out how to turn that into code and develop the bank's internal trading systems. So I worked a lot with financial products. And when I found out about blockchain and cryptocurrency, it seemed like a natural fit for me because it was a brand new type of financial product. So with my background in finance, it made me feel very naturally curious about it. And when I started exploring Bitcoin in 2015, started learning about it, and I just fell deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And then I learned about Ethereum and smart contracts, and it was just like, whoa, mind blown. I thought this is going to be the future. And eventually my wanderings led me to the Hive blockchain. And I made a Hive account and started getting involved with some blogging and found out about Splinterlands from a blog post. And back then, of course, it was called Steam, not Hive. Hive forked off from Steam later on. And originally the game was called Steam Monsters, not Splinterlands. So I managed to buy some alpha packs before they sold out. And in my very first set of 100 alpha packs that I opened, I got a gold foil legendary. And
Which one?
I don't actually remember which one it was now, but I remember being able to resell it for a lot of money later on. And that's kind of what got me hooked into the game, getting that GFL in my first batch of packs. So I was a player first and foremost before I became a team member. And then later on, when Aggie and Yabatma found out that I could code, they made me a job offer, and I was like, "Oh my God, how could I say no? This is too good to be true." And it's kind of my dream job, combining my passion for video games with my passion for cryptocurrency.
How did you manage to connect with Matt and Aggie?
Well, I was one of the largest kind of investor players at the time. I sunk a lot of money into the game, and I paid attention to Mav's chat constantly, like pretty much every day. And I saw Aggie just on there talking to people every now and then. So I gradually started to talk to him as well. And then I got involved with Hive Engine as well, which is the other company that Aggie runs. And one thing just sort of led to another. And one day I saw someone saying like, "Oh, I wish we could clone your Batman. We need another one of them." And I was like, "Hey guys, are you looking for someone?" I'm here.
Nice, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's like amazing how this whole ecosystem, just opportunities are just around every corner.
They certainly are. I mean, that's one of the exciting things about crypto. You miss one chance, there's always another. There's stuff coming through all the time. The space is evolving very quickly. The pace of innovation is just far and away higher than anything I've seen in any other industry, really.
Yeah. So speaking of the innovation, the evolution, I think this kind of serves a natural segue back to, a very recent evolution within the Splinterlands universe being, tying ourselves to the Ethereum blockchain through Rooney. So we are pretty close, I think, down to less than 24 hours before general sale drop. So would you mind talking about what are your plans personally, and what is your kind of general excitement for Splinterlands as a brand with Rooney?
Rooney is really exciting. It's one of the things I've been looking forward to the most over the last few months. I think it's great that we're starting to branch out into Ethereum and find some ways to attract some of the Ethereum crowd and get them interested in Splinterlands. I think Rooney will do that. To me, a lot of the things that make Rooney exciting is that it's more than just another art NFT. I mean, NFTs, non-fungible tokens, I think a lot of people don't really fully understand the potential of them. People see NFTs and they think, oh, digital art, those CryptoPunk things, and Bored Apes, those little doodles, that sell for a lot of money. But what they don't think about is the possible utility of NFTs. An NFT doesn't have to be art. It can be anything really, a token on the blockchain that has data associated with it. So for example, you could have an NFT that represents a land deed, or it could represent shares in some real estate, or some legal contract that's been digitized and put on the blockchain. I think we've only begun to scratch the bare minimum of possibilities. What an NFT can actually be. It's more than digital art. A lot of the digital art we've seen so far doesn't really have much utility. Rooney is taking that a step further by actually having utility. So yes, it's cool digital art, but it's also a playable card within Splinterlands. And it may have other benefits in the future as well. It may act as like a pass to unlock certain other things within the game. That's all still TBD, of course. But initially you'll be able to play with it, and it's an actual card. So it's more than just a fancy looking picture. And to me, one of the other things that's cool about it is we've been talking about the possibility of swapping parts. So you get a Rooney, it might have one rare trait, like maybe you've got a really cool hat. And then you get another Rooney and maybe it has a different rare trait. Maybe it has a really cool background. And how cool would it be if you could take the background from one Rooney and move it onto the Rooney that has the hat? So suddenly you've got a Rooney with two rare traits. So we've been talking about being able to mix and match the traits, swap them around. As long as you have two Roonies in your collection, you could swap the traits from one Rooney to the other. And I don't know when that's going to be available. It's something we've been talking about, but it still needs to be planned out in detail. So it could be coming a ways down the line. But my initial strategy for the Rooney sale has been geared towards that future possibility of being able to swap traits. So that's pretty much why I got all the Roonies I have in my collection now. I minted a few, and then I went out shopping and I bought a bunch of Rooney that have a specific traits that I'm interested in. And then later on, once swapping is available, I'm going to take all those Rooney in my collection and I'm going to combine them to make kind of a super gold foil Rooney where everything on it is super rare.
Are you doing that as a collector, or you're doing it for investment purposes?
A little bit of both. So I've never been a huge NFT collector because up till now, a lot of the NFTs that we see on places like OpenSea are just digital art. Like I said, they don't really have a ton of utility. I'm more interested in things that have utility. But with Rooney, I like the idea of having a super rare one that looks really cool because of the utility. I'll play it in the game, and when people see it in the game, they'll be like, oh wow, he's got a gold foil Rooney with a snazzy background, and man, that's a cool weapon. Yeah, so I'll be like, haha, I have my super Rooney, I'm going to crush you.
So you're hoping to distract them.
Distract them with the bling, yes.
What was did you have your sights set on a single or a couple of particular traits, and were you able to to procure those in your either minting or shopping spree?
Yeah, I think kind of the most important things, the top three that I was looking for was a gold foil, having a cool body type, and having a cool weapon type. And I wanted those to be as unique as possible. So I got a body type on one of them that's a one, there's only one of it minted right now. It's totally unique. So that's pretty cool. It's the red whelps body type. And I have a sword on another Rooney where I believe there's only two of them right now. So also super unique. That is the Edge of Chaos sword. So I'm going to take that Edge of Chaos sword and combine it with the red whelps body. Yes, that's the one that you're looking at.
Yeah, that is a pretty, that's a rad Rooney just by itself.
Mm-hmm.
I love the head too. It's the like the mummy wrap with the eyeball popping through.
Yeah, I got a couple of good looking heads. I have one that has a Lux Vega head, so I might swap that onto it. That might look pretty cool.
A Lux Vega head. Oh, is that this one?
No, scroll down a bit. That's the one there, the Lux Vega head.
Ah, man, nice.
Yep. So I might put that onto the dragon, not the red whelps dragon body, and then move the Edge of Chaos sword on there. And then I have another one that has a gold crown, so I'll put the gold crown on there as well. And then move all of that onto the gold foil.
Yeah, you're not joking. Blinded by the bling is an understatement there, Cryptomancer.
So I bought several of those on OpenSea, and then I did a couple of OTC deals with people in Discord as well. So I think that gives me a pretty good collection of traits that I can use for my mix and matching. So I'm probably not going to buy any more during the general sale. I do have a few up for sale right now, some of the ones that I don't really need to make my Super Rooney. So I'll see if those sell. And ultimately, I think I want to end up with maybe two really good ones. The Super Rooney, and then maybe one other one that I'll play with in the game. The Super Rooney I might eventually put up for sale, maybe like 30 or 40 ETH, something like that, and just let it sit there and then play with another one. So not sure, still thinking about those possibilities.
Do you see us selling the Rooney on Ethereum blockchain, OpenSea, as important for Splinterlands?
Yes, because we want to branch out beyond just the Hive blockchain crowd. Ethereum is the original smart contract platform. It's the number 2 cryptocurrency other than BTC, and there's a lot of money in the Ethereum ecosystem. And we'd like to have some of those people in that ecosystem take notice of Splinterlands and get interested in Splinterlands and bring some of that money into our ecosystem. And I think Rooney's is one way that we can bridge that gap.
Do you think it will be long-term benefits, or can you just see it as being short-term?
Well, there's a bit of both, really. So in the short term, I think the sale is going to be a big success, and I think it's going to sell out fairly quickly. And if it does sell out quickly, that's going to generate a good bit of publicity for us. That'll be good press, good marketing. And then longer term, I think we might have some other similar sorts of projects. And if we can keep our name visible in the longer term and get some of those people in the Ethereum ecosystem to participate in Splinterlands, then that could help grow our user base a lot.
Yeah, kind of looking at the analytics on OpenSea around Rooney, and a couple of things kind of stick out to me as being encouraging. Number one, we've seen the floor price kind of start to climb back towards general sale minting costs, which is fantastic to see. But more importantly, I think percentage of unique owners is there kind of a ballpark number that you've been around the blockchain for a little while and kept an eye on these things. Is there kind of a unique ownership percentage that Splinterlands deems a success. Obviously we don't want just the entire ownership base to comprise of the whales within Splinterlands, but I think first and foremost it's a fantastic marketing opportunity, and I'm just curious if we have a ballpark number that we're shooting for.
I'm not aware of any ballpark number. The marketing guys might have something in mind that they'd like to hit, but I don't know what that target is myself. From a personal point of view, I think I would like to see it be distributed fairly widely. So I don't want to see just Splinterlands players, the existing player base, snapping up all the Rooney. I want to see some new people coming in and see some interest from both Ethereum whales and dolphins and Ethereum minnows. I mean, we set the mint price is not hugely high. It's not in the thousands of dollars range. So it's pretty accessible to anyone that likes collecting NFTs, not just whales. And we limited the allow list spots specifically so that Splinterlands players would have a nice chance to get in first, but they wouldn't gobble up everything. So I think there's plenty of room for other people to come in, and that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, I think also you just mentioned the point before about having other projects. I think that's a really good idea. I think if the team consistently, and this is probably what I'm aiming at, is just that consistency is really important to have. If we want eyes on the game, to have projects. I'm not saying keep having these Roonies, because the whole point of these Roonies is the uniqueness, but similar projects on OpenSea is something that would, I think, benefit the Splinterlands ecosystem long term.
Yep, absolutely. If Rooney is a success, I think we'll definitely be looking into having other similar sorts of projects in the future.
Yeah, I think because when you guys were constructing the traits in Rooney, did you get it feels like there's a little bit of everything. There's kind of the serious big swords with flames coming off of it, and then there's obviously the other end of the spectrum, people wielding a giant dill pickle and a preserved fish. So when you guys were coming up with characteristics, did the team get a chance to kind of throw their thoughts into the idea bowl and shake it around and see what comes out? How did you guys come up with these fantastic characteristics?
That was done more within the art department, really. So there wasn't like a whole team meeting where people suggested stuff. So it was a surprise to me when I saw the traits revealed.
You mean you weren't expecting a pickle, Cryptomancer?
I was not expecting a pickle, no. But I think it's great that they threw that in there. I mean, I think originally they were thinking of just making everything really serious and cool looking and not having those sorts of funny traits. But then somebody said, hey, we should throw in some funny stuff too. Don't make it all 100% serious, because that's a good way of inducing a little bit of FOMO. Because if everyone got a Rooney that looked super cool with an awesome weapon and an incredible, fantastic body or whatever, then they wouldn't feel as special. If you have the possibility of getting one where you're like, oh man, that's not quite what I wanted. Oh, that weapon, that's kind of ordinary and dinky. Then you have that kind of FOMO aspect. Then people will be thinking, well, all right, maybe I'll mint one more and try to get a better weapon, or maybe I'll buy this Rooney over here and I can swap out the parts for this other thing instead. So I think it actually helps the sale a lot more by having those elements in there. So that some Rooney feel a bit more ordinary, a bit silly, and others feel a bit more fantastically and cool, perhaps.
So you're saying you're really excited about Rooney, and I was just wondering, what are your ideas for possible utility down the line?
Number one, I'd say would be land. Land has all sorts of possibilities. Like Gladius cards, for example. I'm really hoping that Gladius cards might have some additional bonus when they work on land beyond what a regular card might provide. And I'm hoping for something similar for Rooney. Maybe it would add something extra that regular cards don't provide when you use it as a worker on your land. All that stuff is still a bit TBD, so we can't do more than speculate on it at this point. But I think that's the number one area where we could get good utility.
And yeah, okay, go Ben. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would love to see some sort of in-person utility. So maybe, I don't know if that means like a whitelist spot for the next Splinterfest, or, maybe a meetup at a Mexican food restaurant in Tokyo, or, whatever that looks like. But some in-person utility would be a really cool way to kind of, shake some hands and kiss some babies for the Splinterlands team.
Yep. So we mentioned the possibility that it might be used as some kind of pass in the future for granting access to something. And that's definitely something to think about.
So, yeah, I just want to get onto land, and, I'm not expecting you to drop any kind of juicy tidbits or anything, but in a recent podcast, Aggie asked you personally what you would like to get stuck into, and then on the a town hall a good few months ago, Matt also was requesting your services for land. So I'm just wondering how that is going. Have you started work on land yourself?
At the moment, I personally am not involved in the land development. We have other people that have been working on that and making steady progress in recent months. I've been focusing more on brawls for now, trying to get brawl SPS rewards out and some other improvements. Land is something that I would definitely like to look at some point. It's the upcoming project that I'm most excited about. And I've, from the very get-go, when it was first announced, I wanted to be involved in developing it somehow. So I'm hoping that after I finish the current work that I'm doing for brawls, that I'll be able to move on to land myself.
Yeah, you've got like 3 regions and a few plots as well, right? So
yep, that's right.
like, for me and Ben, like we kind of invest in the game, because we trust in the team. So I was just wondering what like pushed you to, because you are a team member, but I was just wondering what pushed you to buy 3 regions.
Well, when land was first announced, I thought this is going to be it. This is going to be the next big thing for the game. It's going to take the gameplay in a radically new direction with items and spells being added in. It's basically going to be the biggest expansion to the core gameplay since the core game was released. And we've had other things come along since the game's first launched. We've had the tournament system added. We've had brawls added. But those things are all variations of the existing combat system. The items and spells that land adds is going to be the first really big new expansion of the core combat system. And also with the resource management aspect, it's going to have a little bit of an empire builder feel to it, managing your lands and all the resource flow that goes on between them. And I've always really loved games like Civilization. That was one of my favorites growing up as a kid. I used to spend hours playing Civ 2. And so I got tremendously excited about land, and I just thought I got to have as much as I possibly can. So I got my first 2 regions from the initial land pre-sale lotteries. And then after the land pre-sale, there was a special promotional period where you could buy land with the BAT cryptocurrency and get a bit of a discount on it. So I picked up my 3rd region during that promotional deal. I basically scraped together every last bit of extra change that I could from my portfolio and poured it into land. And I have not regretted that decision.
That sounds wonderful, man. So I'm a mere peon. I'm a single plot holder, but that doesn't mean I don't share the same excitement as you overlords with your multiple regions. Do you feel like you're adequately prepared from a resource management perspective with your current card base? I think you've got 12 million CP. Is that gonna cut it? Are you planning on selling off some lands? What's your kind of plan moving forward, and how are you going to prepare for it?
I don't really feel totally prepared, simply because we don't know a lot yet about the requirements for land workers. Even within the team, that's still something that's a bit fuzzy right now. And so we don't know, like, how many summoners are you going to need? How many monsters are you going to need? Are you going to need them all to be max level in order to make the most efficient use of the land? There's a lot of unanswered questions. The only real way to prepare is by having, I think, as many cards as possible and as many high level cards as possible. And I've got a lot of high level cards. I certainly don't have nearly enough to work 3,000 plots of land. I don't think I've even got enough regular cards to work 3,000 plots of land, unleveled ones. So I'm going to keep preparing and keep building up my collection as best I can. I do have something like several thousand gelatinous cubes that I've been collecting. So
please, man, Cryptomancer, from one man to another, please, I'm begging you, buy up the whole lot of them and send them out to pasture, man.
I love the cubes, one of my favorite cards. So maybe I'll have a bunch of cubes sliming their way across my land. They'll be my primary land workers, perhaps.
Yeah, I've been like kind of buying up my guys for land. I've got 5 plots, but I mean, Ben were talking about this as well. Like, I know for some reason I just like put in something like a gelatinous cube or a vampire fox. I'm working my land just doesn't sit right. So
yeah, it feels a bit strange, doesn't it?
I don't trust that vampire fox. But like for me, I'm so excited about land, and I just listened to the podcast with Brybro where you guys are getting into it. Actually, I've listened to all his podcasts with like various people, and when I listen to it, I've listened to yours twice now, and when I listen to it, I just like, so excited because, like, for me, when I was growing up, I was into these fighting fantasy novels, and you'd roll the dice, and kind of choose your own adventure, but there's a little bit of risk, luck as well. But I think
I love those myself.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just once you go into these worlds, and for these people who haven't read these books or played these games, it's just a whole new world opens up. And that's what really excites me about land, is that the possibilities for me just seem pretty endless.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a good chance to bring a lot more lore elements into the game as well. Because right now in-game lore is kind of restricted to what you can read about each of the cards on the lore tab. And I think with land, we can draw that in and make it a much bigger part of the game, because we can have locations in the lore show up as actual locations in Praeteria. And maybe that can factor into how the land gets used at some points in the future. So it'd be kind of cool to say, oh, well, I don't just have a region of swamp. I have this particular piece of land from this city that showed up in this lore story that this character over here was involved in. So I think that's going to be really engaging for some people.
Yeah. So you mentioned before you're really into these kind of civilization games. I know, like, you're into these 4X games as well, right? So like for 4X, it's like explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. So how do you think, or do you think the team will use that as an influence? Like, especially if you, this is why I'm really excited. If you can get your hands onto land and get stuck into land, I feel, because like you've got this passion for these kind of civilization games, I feel that, yeah, that land is going to go to a different level. So how do you think, if you use those 4X games as a like example, how do you think that could influence the whole land game?
So for one thing, I think it would be really cool if we had quests that you had to undertake in certain locations. Like maybe there's a dungeon where you have to go into some cave and you have to clear out all the monsters lurking in the cave, and then you get some kind of reward afterwards. So I'd like to see kind of a PvE element added there. And that could also figure into boss fights as well. But we've been talking about boss fights pretty much forever. And that's one of the other things where people keep asking, when boss fights? And the answer is sometime after land, because land is kind of a prerequisite for boss fights. But I look at boss fights as being kind of like a more difficult version of a quest. Like you have to go into this location, fight the boss. Maybe you'll have to fight it with your guild mates. So some kind of cooperative team mode type play. And then you get some reward, maybe some item or something after you beat the boss. And I personally would love to add a lot of PvE elements like that. Different ways that people can interact with their land beyond basic resource management. I think it's really tricky to balance that sort of thing though, because you don't want it to get into a situation where some bot can come along and just exploit these quests and turn it into some kind of infinite item farm or whatnot. You don't want that to happen. So we have to look carefully at how to balance that and make sure that it fits into the overall game economy without throwing things out of whack. But if we can find a way to do that successfully, then it could be a very big addition to the land element. So
So
for internally.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the most recent kind of announcement around land that I can recall is we're still aiming for kind of an end of the year, start of 2023, assuming that we've got the kind of tech modernization all squared away. Is that accurate? Am I remembering correctly?
Yep, that's right. I think we're still on target to meet those goals. So we're currently finishing up on the tech modernization, and it's going through QA testing now. There's still a couple niggling last issues that are being worked out, but I'm confident that will be resolved shortly, and we'll be getting that pushed out. Then we'll have the non-card market coming along, and the very first phase of land should follow shortly after that.
And phase one is revealing the plots. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So you'll be able to see where your plots are located on the map and what types of plots you have. You won't be able to construct buildings or have cards working on the land initially. That's more of a phase 2 thing. So phase 1, just revealing the plots, seeing what the map looks like.
What are boss fights? Because I always hear people calling for boss fights. Like in my mind, I'm just imagining there's some big dudes, and you have to kind of just fight with this guy. So
you square off with Aggie, man. What do you think?
So the boss fights, yeah, the story there is that way back when there was a Kickstarter campaign to fund one of the new sets. I'm trying to remember which. It might have been the Untamed Kickstarter. Might have been an even earlier one. My memory's a bit fuzzy on the specifics, but there was a Kickstarter at one point, and one of the high tiers for the Kickstarter was a boss fight. So if you paid a certain amount of money for that tier, then you got to design your own boss. Kind of similar to the thing we had in the past with Chaos Legion, where for the pre-sale, the top 6 could design the airdrop cards. And before that, there was design a legendary summoner. So my Cryptomancer card is the card that I designed as another Kickstarter reward. The boss fights are supposed to be something similar, where people have an idea about what kind of boss they want, and they can suggest art and stuff to the art team and kind of help design the fight. That was the idea. And we didn't realize that it was going to take quite so long before we'd be able to get around to it. So we have these people that I think there were 4 or 5. There were a handful that got this Kickstarter tier. I was one of them. So I got a boss fight. And then those people get to design the boss, but they've just been waiting all these years for us to get around to implementing boss fights. So like in Discord, there's a guy, Flowy, who got another one of the boss fights, and he'll pop up every now and then and say, "When's my boss coming? When's my boss coming?" It's kind of a long-standing running joke now.
So would you be able to kind of articulate your imagination for what your boss looks like? I'm sure it's taken on some iterations and a life of its own at this point, given all the time that's elapsed since you secured yourself a boss fight. But in your mind, what does Cryptomancer's boss fight look like?
So I haven't really thought about it a great deal, but I do have kind of a core concept. So I've got my Cryptomancer, and he's kind of a black magic necromancer type of guy who likes to raise the dead, and that's his hobby. And I was thinking for the boss fight, we could have a story where like Cryptomancer is fooling around with the black arts, and one day he tears a hole in the time-space continuum, opens up this portal to another world, and he brings through like a mirror image of himself. And his idea was to use forces from this other world to conquer the Splinterlands, but the plan kind of backfires, and a mirror image version of himself comes through riding on the back of a big zombie dragon. So the boss fight would be you're trying to take down this alternate reality Cryptomancer who is riding on a zombie dragon.
Haven't thought about it too much, huh? That sounds incredible, man. That is awesome. And thanks for sharing. I had no idea that obviously I knew Cryptmancer was present and I know Cryptomancer. I didn't realize there was the connection between the two. And that's your likeness in perpetuity there on the blockchain, man. That's very cool. That's
Yep, exactly. So actually kind of funny story about that Cryptomancer card. So we've got this this guy, Tales of the Cryptomancer, who does these videos. And originally he had it as Tales of the Cryptomancer. He like accidentally had the O on there when it wasn't supposed to be. So I keep getting like DMs from random people all the time saying, "Hey, you're doing those Tales of the Cryptomancer videos." And I'd be like, nope, that's not me. You got the wrong guy. So sometimes people still get a bit confused about that.
Well, we've actually got Tales from the Cryptmancer coming on in a couple of weeks' time. We will definitely revive this joke on air next time.
He's an awesome guy. He puts forward really good videos. Definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, very keen analyst. We're excited to get him on.
Yeah, I'm just also thinking, so my mind's like racing about the whole land thing and what you can do. And I suppose like what they did recently with the Rooney, they had some kind of like you had to go through all these different rooms to get to the end, right? And then and then the people who managed to solve the puzzles got the Rooney, right? I'm just wondering if something like that also could be happening in land.
Yeah, I think that sort of puzzle thing where it's almost like a choose your own adventure where you have to go from one step to the next and kind of feel your way through it to the end. I think that would be great to do with land as well. I'd like to see that sort of thing integrated in game rather than being just a Discord feature. So maybe you have to unlock some location in the land, and then you can click on it and you go through some kind of puzzle like that in game. And then it leads you to some other location in the land where something else happens. So that could tie back into the idea I had for doing quests in different spots on the land. That could be a type of quest.
I wonder also, like, because one of the main incentives to have land as well is like to dig up your spells and I can't remember what else now, but I wonder how that is going to influence the game as well, like ranked battles.
I think it's going to have a really big effect on things. For one thing, it'll add a new layer of tactical depth to the game. So it'll make strategy a bit more complicated, a bit of a deeper experience. I think that's also going to make it a lot harder for bots. So bots will have to figure out how to choose the best items and spells, and that's going to make things a ton harder for them trying to strategize about the game. So we might see some impact there. But overall, I just think it's going to make it a deeper, more engaging game. There's going to be more tactics, more strategies that you can employ.
Are we planning on items and spells being specific for battles, or is there going to be something along the lines of, maybe today I can cast this spell and all of a sudden my daily chests go up a league sort of thing, or I cast this spell and my ECR grows by 20 points? Or are we looking at kind of incorporating spells into the outside of ranked battles, but still within Splinterlands?
I think right now the focus is on ranked battles. The sort of thing that you describe, having them impact other areas of the game, I think that's a really cool idea. And it's definitely something that we can look into. But initially, it'll probably just be within the scope of ranked battles. So I think the idea will be a second phase of the battle. So in your first phase, it'll be kind of like it is now, where each player picks their team, and then the teams get revealed. And then in the second phase, before the battle, so now you can see the other player's team, and then you can choose your items and spells to affect the outcome before watching the battle. So you'll see the team, and maybe you'll see, oh gosh, that guy's got a really powerful tank. So I'm going to use this magic wand that corrodes away all of his armor, so I can kill that guy really easy. So those will be the sort of decisions you can think about. How do I use my items and spells to affect the outcome now that I know what cards are being played?
And the idea is that spells will be consumable, items will be durable. Is that right?
Probably, but a lot of that stuff is still TBD as well, so I can't say for certain.
I wonder how disadvantageous, if that's a word, not having a spell would be. Like, is it just gonna be that thing where you've got to have spells? I wonder.
So this is a balancing aspect, and I think we need to be really careful how we handle that, because there are going to be some people that are not so interested in land. Some people are going to say, well, I don't really care too much about this empire building land thing. I just want to keep playing the game and battling and not worry about land. And so, I mean, obviously, you're going to be at a bit of a disadvantage if you don't employ any items and spells, but we don't want to go to the extreme and make it so that you have to have those things. Just like when we balance card stats now, we want to make sure that there's not like one killer card that you have to have. I mean, obviously, if you own a full set of max cards, that's going to give you a bit of an advantage over someone who only collects one particular splinter. But we don't want the balance to be totally thrown out of whack. We don't want people to feel like you must have certain things in order to win.
Well, it would just open yourself up to criticism, right? Like, there's already, minority, majority, whatever you want to call it, who can complain, well, will complain at, for example, people saying about this whole voting, about the whales having the advantage. So leaving yourself, open to criticism is not the best way, right? But yeah, I just kind of also just wonder, like for me, maybe just adding the spell to a certain monster rather than maybe the whole team, so it's not so OP.
Yeah, so and there's lots of things that we can look at for balancing, and all of that is still TBD. So I don't know if there's going to be a lot of spells that affect the whole team, or if they're only going to affect individual monsters. That's certainly something that we need to take a look at from a balance point of view. We need to be careful not to make anything too overpowered.
So there's no talks of a kitty spell, I would assume. Give my summoner true strike, 2 speed, and tank heal.
Not that I'm aware of. I'm sure Biz would love to push for some kind of kitty spell. Rain cats down from above. And isn't that one of the tower defense spells? Cat rain, I think it's called.
Is it?
Yes, that makes tower. I was just going to say, from a balance perspective, I know that that's something that Yabatmat is very conscious of when he designs new cards and stats. And I imagine he will apply the same sorts of reasoning to items and spells. I know when he designs a new card, he has a certain number of points that can be allocated to the cards, and different stats are worth different points. Different abilities are worth different points values. So he tries to keep those points values about the same for all the cards. Like for instance, and he did that going all the way back to the alpha set. So you might have like the alpha gold dragon that is worth a certain number of points. And you have the same points for Rift Watcher's card, but they're allocated differently among the different abilities. So that's why you might have a case where, like say the new Kane Haste card that's going to be airdropped soon. It has 5 magic damage, which is really, really powerful. But so that 5 magic damage is worth a lot of these design points. And then to make up for it, you don't have many design points left in other areas. And so that's why he has really, really low health to balance that out.
Speaking of airdrops and this particular one, Kane Haste, coming soon, how does it feel to have the magic fingers on the red button coming from, especially looking back at your journey from Splinterlands, coming from alpha as a player to now you're the man who drops, Oshur was the most recent drop, and coming up Kane Haste, and then the water summoner will be next for Chaos Legion. What does it feel like to have that magic in your fingers?
Oh, I love it. It's one of the best parts of the job. It's to put a bunch of work into these things and then to be able to push the button and see the sheer excitement on Discord and how everybody goes crazy and shows off their airdrops and is like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening. It's pure magic.
You're a popular guy come that next millionth pack sale, huh?
Yep. I always have a lot of fun on airdrop days. I wake up excited on those days for sure.
Yeah, Cryptomancer is definitely trending on Discord during that time. I was going to ask, like you mentioned before about someone asking, I wish we could clone Matt's. How have you enjoyed working with the team, and what are the positives and negatives working remotely in a business such as Splinterlands?
So first of all, I'd say that the team is great. I get along with them all, and it has been a really fun experience working with each and every one. And Yabatmat in particular. So back in the day, it was just me, him, and 1 or 2 other guys who were doing all the coding. So I had a lot of personal interactions with him. We've spent a lot of time going over requirements and clarifying how things were supposed to work. And he was always just a really great guy to work with. He's not like a traditional boss, like when I used to work at the big banks, I had this guy that would micromanage everything, and he'd come over my shoulder and he'd be like, how many lines of code have you written today? And he'd want to like micromanage every little thing. I hated that. But Matt is like completely the opposite. He's not a micromanager. He says in broad strokes, this is what we need to do. And then he lets you figure out the best way to do it. So within the constraints of the overall design goals of a project, I had a lot of freedom to figure out how to actually implement it. And I could add my own little flourishes to the UI. So while I was working on something, I might be looking at the UI design and thinking, oh, well, it'd actually be really cool if the button worked like this. Or you had this extra little tooltip here that gave a bit more info. And so I could feel free to add those things in myself as I went along. And so when the finished feature ships, a lot of the things that I turn out have my own personal touches built into them. So I feel a lot more vested in the outcome, and I care a lot more about maintaining it and making sure that it actually works well when I have that sort of creative freedom to work with. It has kind of been carried through a lot now that the team has grown as well. So there's not really a lot of micromanaging. The project managers will be like, this is what we need to do. These are the goals. maybe here's a bullet point list of things that we need. And then as developers, we're free to figure out the best way to get that done.
So kind of looking back at your body of work with Splinterlands and all the development that you've done, is there a particular piece of code or product feature that you've put into production that you're most proud of, that you're happy to hang your hat on and say, yeah, that's Cryptomancer?
I think one of my proudest accomplishments to date was launching Chaos Legion. So I was the guy that coded all of Chaos Legion. I did all the pre-sale pages. I did all the changes throughout the game website that needed to occur for Chaos Legion. I added stuff to the mana well, made sure the packs could be opened. I took the card stats and put in all the card definitions. So Chaos Legion was one of my biggest projects and had a lot of high visibility. It was one of our most important releases too, because that was just after the player base had started kind of exploding. And so there were high expectations going into that set, maybe higher expectations than any other card set that we've launched to that date. And I remember the week before the release, I was staying up late at night. I pulled an all-nighter a couple times to make sure everything was ready in time. Nate, the art guy, he kept throwing new art at me, and he was like, all right, we want to add this story page and we want to put these videos in it. And I was like, oh my God. So I had to hurry to get all this stuff ready last minute. And it really came out well. When the release actually happened, I oversaw the launch of Chaos Legion directly. I did the actual release and all the release steps. And after it launched and people were playing with their cards, I got a message from Yabatmat, and he said that it was one of the smoothest product launches in company history of any company that he's worked with. And I was just floored. I was just like, wow, it was such an honor to be the point guy on Chaos Legion. And I'm really, really proud of how we pulled off such a big launch without a hitch.
That's awesome, man. Great story. Thank you for sharing. And I think, a couple of things come to mind on the heels of that. One, the authenticity and transparency from the highest levels of leadership in the game. It shines through in town halls and just on random interviews and podcasts. We had Aggie on just before Splinterfest, and just the transparency and authenticity. It goes so far, and for that to be felt and shared, and I think very much paid forward by guys like you who are working in the trenches with these guys. It's just testament to how true that authenticity really is. So again, thank you for sharing. And then the Chaos Legion thing, fantastic work, man. And I think it is safe to say, obviously, I'm a relatively new player compared to you guys. I've been in since January, February this year. So Chaos Legion is kind of my first experience. That's what I entered into the game with. And I think I came just before the Carnage Titan airdrop. And I managed to secure enough cards to guarantee or enough packs, I should say, to guarantee myself the first airdrop. And that was the initial wave of excitement that I felt with Splinterlands and specifically Chaos Legion. So, looking at kind of the current conversation around pack burning and these proposals, how do you feel with Chaos Legion kind of being Cryptomancer's baby? What are your thoughts on the burning of packs and kind of the expedite of pushing through the remainder of Chaos Legion?
Well, that proposal surprised me a little bit when I first saw it. And one thing to realize is that internally within the team, we often don't know that these proposals are going to be coming any sooner than you guys do. So the first I heard of it was when I saw the public announcement and I read the Pete D post. And at first I was like, not sure what I think about this. Because I was always thinking that a good strategy is to just let a pack edition sell out, however long that takes, and then wait a few months and then launch the next edition. So I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with waiting like that and not having a fixed release schedule for the next set. But then I thought about it a little bit more, kind of worked through the ramifications there. And now I think I support that proposal, and I'm going to vote for it. And I think it's a good idea for a few reasons. So one, I think the number of Chaos Legion packs in existence is a little bit too high. That was initially overestimated a bit, because we try to target it so that it takes about a year for a release to sell out. And it seemed like the Chaos Legion numbers were a little high. I mean, initially we were in a bull market. The user base had just grown a ton, and those numbers made sense. But now that we're in a bear market and pack sales have slowed down a bit, those numbers look like they don't necessarily make so much sense anymore. And if we gradually start to burn the packs so that the set finishes by a certain well-defined date, it could induce a little bit of FOMO. People might think, oh man, I actually don't have that much time. So they might think, oh, I better hurry up and finish my Chaos Legion set while the packs are still available. So that might have a positive effect on pack sales and kind of turn into a feedback loop, which finishes the set even faster. So that's one good thing about it. And another good thing is, well, it is kind of nice to know exactly when the next set will be coming. So right now, the next major set, Rebellion, is targeted for next summer. And if you know for sure that the new set is going to come at a certain time, then it makes it easier to make financial and gameplay decisions around that. The markets do not like uncertainty. They like it when things are more certain. So that's another positive aspect. So initially when I saw the proposal, I was like, don't mess with my baby. But then I thought about it a bit more, and I thought, hey, actually, this does sound like a pretty good idea. You have to be careful not to take things too personally. Like you do get personally invested a lot in certain projects. Like Chaos Legion feels like my baby. Modern and Wild feels like my baby. Brawls feel like my baby. And so when other people start to mess with those things and change things around, there's a little bit of that feeling of, hey, don't mess with my baby. But then you think, hey, this is really a team effort. It's a good thing to have people messing with my baby. I shouldn't be the only guy responsible for this, because like, what if something happens to me? What if, God forbid, I get hit by a bus or something? You want other people to be able to take things up and go with the flow. So working as a team, it's important that team members participate in all the different areas and get familiar with all these different projects. So you got to try to not take it personally when changes are made to your baby.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right in the head there, man. I think it's kind of all these decisions that are being made that are going to affect the community, right? So I think the way I look at it is that maybe these proposals don't actually suit my needs, but are they going to suit the whole Splinterlands ecosystem, like long term?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it, really, because by fitting the needs of the ecosystem long term, that actually does fit your needs as well. Maybe something might be better for you in the short term, but if that short-term advantage kind of destroys some of the long-term potential, then that's not a good thing. And that can be really hard to do, to kind of overlook your own short-term interests in favor of the whole. That's not easy for a lot of people.
Which I think, to be fair, is what Matt is doing, right? I think from an outsider looking in, the Splinterlands has made decisions a year ago, 2 years ago, and they realize it's maybe, like, for long term, it's not beneficial. So they are trying to adjust, and they are proposing it to us. and it's up to us to choose the right one.
Yep, that's exactly it. So Matt's philosophy from the beginning has always been that changes will be made whenever it's necessary to do so, and that nothing is set in stone. And I think when you have things like white papers and sales that people expect to work in a certain way, I think it's important to try to get that stuff right from the beginning as much as possible, because it does upset people when changes are made midstream. So Matt and Aggie reserve the right to make those changes for the good of the whole game whenever it's necessary, but they try not to do it unless it really is necessary. Like they wouldn't just decide, oh hey, we're going to change this big major thing over here just for the hell of it. They wouldn't do that. There's always good, solid, fundamental reasons for wanting to make these changes, and that's something that Matt has done really, really well up to this point, kind of guiding Splinterlands from the technical side of things. The series of decisions that he's made over the years has been in large part responsible for how successful the game has become now.
Yeah, I think it's easy to look at Chaos Legion and say, maybe we overshot the moon preparing 15 million packs, but I think and we talked about this, we had Aftersound on a couple of weeks, and I think it came up kind of in passing, but looking at Chaos Legion versus the previous full set being Untamed, with 10x the total number of packs, right? I believe Untamed was 1.5 million packs available on market.
Yeah, that's right.
And then going to 15 million, Untamed took 18 months, if I'm not mistaken, to sell out, and something like that. And we're less than a year into general sale of Chaos Legion, and we've already surpassed 10 million. So I think by anybody's definition, Chaos Legion has been a massive, massive success, right? And I think failing to sell out within the kind of projected timeline, I don't think by anybody's measure would be a failure. So yeah, I mean, kudos to you and the team for going from 1.5 million in 18 months to greater than 10 million plus everything else that's been put on the market in the last 6 months. All of the node licenses selling out in 10 minutes, Rooney whitelist selling out in 90 seconds, Rift Watchers pre-sale selling out in a matter of minutes. All things considered, I have to think that the Splinterlands team is looking at 2022 as being a huge success, especially considering we're in a bear market.
Yes, I agree 100%. I think it's been a very successful year, and the fact that we've been able to manage all these things in a bear market just makes it doubly more so.
I think also like what people have to realize is that Splinterlands is what might not be unique, but it's in the minority of businesses where they give their shareholders the choice. But if you look at any other business around the world, like Apple, Microsoft, they don't even involve their employees in decisions, let alone the shareholders. It's just done from the top, right?
Yep. That plays into the decentralization aspect of the game as well. Since Matt himself is a big proponent of decentralization, he's a hardcore blockchain guy. And so he wants to make sure that Splinterlands kind of follows that same philosophy. I think that's one of the things that distinguishes these Web3 games over the traditional world of Web2, being able to have a greater say in it through these mechanisms of DAOs and whatnot. I think the company is fantastically transparent compared to the big banks that I used to work for. I mean, we do these town halls every week for almost 2 hours every week. That gives a lot of insights into the decision making and what's going on in the company. We try to be as engaged with people as we can in Discord and gather feedback. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that's really, really awesome about Splinterlands as a whole.
Yeah, amazing. I also that you mentioned decentralization, and Splinterlands wants to be decentralized. How decentralized do you think Splinterlands should be? Because for me, and like again, an outsider looking in, I'm quite happy to have Matt and Aggie steering our ship, but I was just wondering what you think.
So this is another one of those things where it's kind of a fine balancing act between too much decentralization and too little decentralization. So I think that a lot of people in the blockchain space champion decentralization. It's kind of like the holy grail of lots of different blockchain projects. But true 100% decentralization is a myth. I think it's almost impossible to achieve. For example, you can have a backend that's well decentralized via a blockchain running on thousands of different nodes all around the world so that no one central authority can shut it down. But oftentimes the front ends for these projects are completely centralized. So yeah, the backend's running great, but if someone comes along and kills the Splinterlands website, what are you going to do? You don't have like a million different copies of the website being hosted by people all around the world. So that's one thing where the decentralization is a little bit of a myth. And that I think is really hard to do properly. You kind of need the resources of a centralized entity to host a website as complicated as Splinterlands. It takes so much processing power, so many things that are going on the back end that are spread out across dozens of different AWS instances. It's really hard to totally decentralize that. And if you did, it might not run very efficiently. I think the things that can be decentralized are a lot of the back end game processing. And that's the sort of thing that we're trying to focus on. So you'll have, so right now, just like you have with a traditional blockchain like Bitcoin, you have all these different nodes spread all around the world that do proof of work, and they validate all the transactions. So they maintain a consensus about what the state of the blockchain is. And that's kind of where we'd like to end up with Splinterlands. So we'd like to have it so that anyone can run a game node anywhere in the world, and you'll have all these thousands of different game nodes. And each game node will maintain its own copy of the game state, and it will process all the various blockchain transactions for running the game. And all the nodes will maintain a consensus with each other about what the state of the game is. And the SPS validators that are being worked on are kind of the first major step in that direction. So the SPS validator, it's not the final state that we want to arrive at. It's more like a major stepping stone along the way. And having all of that decentralized is a very, very good thing. That's one of the strengths of a blockchain-based game, because having all of that decentralized means that Splinterlands, the company, could not influence account balances. We couldn't decide to like take card NFTs away from people. We couldn't mess with things. So people can have trust in the security of the game, and that nobody can mess with their stuff. So that's one of the best selling points about decentralization. You were mentioning a decision making, like having Matt and Aggie continue to steer the ship. And that bit of centralization is very important, I think. So I'd like to see that continue. I'd like to see the DAO making some decisions, but not all the decisions. I'd like to see Splinterlands, the company, retain control over some of the more critical decisions, and make sure that we continue to follow a well-defined path, the vision that Matt and Aggie have laid out. And then within that broad overall vision, there's a lot of room for the DAO to make individual decisions about some of the finer details of the gameplay and how it works.
So I think in this last town hall, it came up around January kind of being a target for getting community-driven proposals into DAO ballots. I believe that's what I had heard. Do you have any idea, Cryptomancer, what is the vetting process for these proposals going from community to ballot look like? How do we sift through the weeds and pull out the gems that people actually want to take the time to vote on?
That's a good question. And I don't think we really want to have too much of a vetting process, because that kind of goes against the spirit of decentralization. In order to reduce the potential for spam proposals and whatnot, there will be some kind of fee that you have to pay in order to get your proposal made public. I'm not sure exactly how much that fee is going to be. It'll be something reasonable. It won't be outrageous, but it'll be enough to prevent people from doing tons of spam proposals. And I'm sure we probably will see some silly ones, like maybe someone could make a proposal like, I vote that we take the entire treasury of the DAO and give it to myself. But you can imagine how the voting on those silly proposals is going to go. I think the vast number of people that are invested in SPS and are going to be voting on these things are rational actors that care a great deal about the game, are passionate about the game, and want to see it succeed. So, I mean, yeah, there'll be silly proposals. They'll get voted down. That's fine.
Yeah. Speaking of silly proposals, there's a couple that are out there right now that have kind of been received as somewhat silly. And in kind of investigating these current proposals, being number one being price roof watchers packs in DEC, number two being price validator node licenses in DEC. The community has responded. I think it's not an overstatement to say that there's been a bit of an angry knee-jerk reaction in response to those two. And in the process of researching them, I discovered that on the proposal page in SPS proposals, you're able to see who is voting and what they are, whether they're giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And I thought it was fascinating to see your name come up there, Cryptomancer, as a no for both of those. If you're comfortable with it, would you mind sharing a little bit of your philosophy and mindset as to why you declined?
Yeah, sure. So there certainly have been a lot of emotions running high over those two proposals. I've seen a lot of back and forth in Discord, a lot of people not feeling so good about those. And so first, a couple things. I think it's important to realize that not every team member is going to vote the same way. A lot of team members like to vote their individual conscience, and we're not told to vote a certain way. So it's like Matt and Aggie don't say, you guys must vote this way in the proposal. We're free to make up our own minds about things and vote the way we want to vote. So you are going to see that from time to time, where some team members are voting for, some are voting against. And these particular proposals, I think that the rationale was that it will help DEC and help DEC get back up to peg. And the easiest way to get DEC back up to peg is by having all sales take place in DEC rather than SPS. And going forward, I think that's a fantastic idea. So going forward, like the Lux Vegas sale, it's going to be in DEC. That is great. All future sales, make them in DEC. Wonderful. I'm fully on board with that. The thing that I'm objecting to, and the reason why I downvoted those proposals, is that I don't like the idea of changing the terms of the sale while the sale is ongoing. So this goes back to a bit about what we were talking about earlier about how we want to try and make it so that when there is a white paper or when the sales terms are given at the very beginning, we want to try to avoid changing those as much as we can. Sometimes there's a really, really good reason to change it. In this case, I don't think the reason for changing it justifies making the change, because people made some financial decisions based on the way these sales are going to go. And we're also still really early in the sales. I mean, both the validator license sale and the Riftwatcher sale started not long ago. So it's not like we're close to the end of them like we are for Chaos Legion. So making that change to burn the Chaos Legion packs, that's very, very different from making this proposed change to the validator license sale and Riftwatcher sales, because we're still very early on in those sales. And I don't think it's right to suddenly change the sale terms so quickly like that. So I think the negative aspects of doing that, basically having people feel like their trust was violated in some way, having them feel so negative about making those changes, I don't think that is worth the positive aspect, which is helping DEC get to peg a little faster. So I think, all right, yeah, future sales, great. Make them all in DEC, that's wonderful, but don't mess with ongoing sales. That's kind of the rationale I'm going for there.
Yeah, I wonder, like with the well, number one, I love the fact that this is another great thing about Splinterlands, and we mentioned this many times, just the transparency. You know, like people see you voting yes or no, or we see other team members voting yes or no. So I think it just gives lots of people reassurance, right? And another point is just that I just find it quite interesting, or I'm just wondering, why has there been so much anger? Is it just because that this was actually proposed, or what? I'm just wondering why.
So I'm actually a little bit surprised myself. I think part of it is that just people get caught up in the passion of voting on things. I mean, it's kind of the same way with politics, right? Like my family is a very level-headed family, but if you start talking about Biden versus Trump and the relative merits of each, it can get into a heated discussion very, very quickly. So I think to some extent, it's just when you're voting on something, it feels like there's more on the line. You get more personally invested with something, and that makes you passionate, and emotions tend to run high. Also, this proposal system is a little bit new, so we're still trying to kind of feel our way through it and figure out the best way to go about these things. Sometimes these proposals come up really suddenly, and like it's just out of thin air, like, oh my gosh, where did this come from? They want to do what? So a little bit is people have this gut reaction to something, and that can make them emotional as well. So I think it's the important thing to keep in mind is there's going to be a lot of proposals coming through all the time, and especially once user generated proposals are out, and we're going to see some kind of silly, wacky ones. And if you're having this much trouble dealing with proposals now, it's not going to get any easier later on. So I think people need to just try to stay calm about these things and realize that it's not the end of the world if something goes one way versus another. Like, so I voted against these proposals, yeah. But if they were to pass, no skin off my back. I'd be like, all right, sure, they passed, moving on. It's not something to really get so upset about on each and every proposal.
Yeah, well, I think that's the whole point of to try and make Splinterlands decentralized, right? Like you want to give people the choice. Like it's just a proposal. The team hasn't said we're doing it. Like they're giving us a choice. So I think that's great to have.
Yep. I think that the team will not shy away from what might be perceived as controversial proposals, because we don't want to feel limited in what we can put out. I think it's fine to put out proposals on just about anything. If people don't like it, they're going to vote against it and it won't happen. That's part of what community governance is all about.
Yeah, I think I wonder if the community would have had a very different emotional response had the kind of combination of three proposals been put forth together. One being, and first and foremost, being the burning of Chaos Legion packs to help speed things up, and then on the heels of that, proposing the Rift Watchers and licenses available for DEC. Because I feel like it was a bit of an emotional roller coaster in Discord the last 2 weeks with these proposals for Rift Watchers and licenses, just creating this very volatile, angry reaction, and then Rooney coming out with the allow list spots being able to be minted, and everybody was all of a sudden at a high, and then Chaos Legion packs being suggested to be burned. I felt like was received really well across. At least most of the big content creators seem to be behind that. So I wonder if we had kind of flipped the order of the proposals, if they would have been received differently.
That's certainly possible. I think going forward, we maybe need to put a little bit more thought into how proposals can mesh well together. And also, when is the best time to release a proposal? Like, I think it wasn't really great timing putting those two proposals out right before the Rooney sale was about to go live, because that kind of took away a little bit of the good feelings initially. Thankfully, the good feelings came back. But like I said just a moment ago, the proposal system is still new and we're still kind of feeling our way through it. So these sorts of things are what we need to kind of work out. We need to work out the kinks and kind of smooth out the process. And that's part of the reason why only the team is doing proposals right now as well. And we haven't opened it up to the general public yet. We want to have these sorts of kinks worked out and have everything functioning smoothly before we open it up to completely user-generated proposals.
Yeah. Hey, I just realized we're getting close to 2 hours, so going to be conscious of your time. Is there anything else, Ben, you'd like to ask before we hit the challenge?
No, I just want to extend a huge thank you to you for taking time out of your day to hop on with the People's Guild and have a chat. I think I speak for both of us and the community listening that it's been an absolute pleasure hearing the tales of Cryptomancer, not Cryptomancer, intentional O, and your journey, and yeah, just thank you for stopping by and sharing your insights and experiences with the team and the business at large.
You're quite welcome. It's been a fun conversation. I've enjoyed chatting with you guys.
Thank you.
Well,
okay.
let's go ahead and proceed to the challenge. I'm ready to face some alpha beta goldness. I would assume is probably headed in my direction. So I'll send you a challenge, Cryptomancer. Is that your in-game name? It's Cryptomancer?
Yep, I'm Cryptomancer in-game as well. Sounds good.
Cryptomancer. And would you prefer a diamond or gold? Let's
do diamond.
Oh boy. Okay.
Throw the kitchen sink at him, Cryptomancer. Throw the kitchen sink.
All right. So the way we'll do this here, Cryptomancer, is we'll go ahead and I'll talk through rule set and what I would love to get one of the new rule sets, by the way, and that's something that I did want to pick your brain on and talk through, but maybe for another conversation. But yeah, I'll talk through the rule set and teams available. We'll set our teams, and then I'll share my screen and we can kind of narrate the battle, sharing the experience together.
Okay, sounds good. I see the challenge prompt has popped up, so I'm going to view that.
Yeah, while this is happening in the background, Cryptomancer, are you excited by the new rule sets? I think it's kind of the first release of many, from my understanding. I'm assuming we've got quite a few kind of waiting in the wings to.
Yep, it's definitely good to see new rule sets coming out. I think that's an important part of keeping the game from getting stale. We always want to make it feel fresh and be adding new rule sets into the mix. So you can definitely expect to see more of them coming along.
What is your least favorite rule set, Cryptomancer?
My least favorite, probably a combination of back to basics and the silent summoners, just because I don't like having abilities taken away from me. I got all these max level cards. I want to use all the abilities.
Yeah, back to basics is a rough one. And there's a few summoners that kind of dominate the back to basic rule sets with mana allowing.
Yep.
What about you, Ben? What's your worst, least favorite?
Yeah, back to basics is a giant pain. The low mana sets are always a good challenge too. I love, Rift Watchers really played to my heart with the number of big mana monsters and giant killer and all these awesome abilities. I want to let those guys loose. I want to play the big mana matches. That's my.
Likewise, I have the most fun with high mana.
Oh yeah. Did that challenge come through for you, Cryptomancer?
It did. I'm going to accept it now. So you'll forgive me if I go silent for a couple minutes while I.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
Here.
Same as me. I can't speak and get my team together. Just need to be in the zone.
I've accepted it, so I'm gonna.
Oh, wonderful. All right, so we've got a heavy hitters. Everybody's got knockout, reverse speed, and then what we were hoping for, a big mana match. I think I might be in trouble, just given the OP degree of some of those older big mana monsters. So we've got 60 mana available with water, earth, and dragon being playable, and I'm staring at 11 million power. Oh boy. All right, Cryptomancer. Let's see what we got here. All righty. Yeah, I have a feeling that the kitchen sink is going to hurt a little bit.
We shall see.
Yeah, I'm finding it hard with the high mana battles because I'm still not used to Rift Watchers.
I actually don't have many Rift Watchers cards myself. I kind of skipped the sale there and FOMO'd into tower defense instead. So I need to spend some time building up my Rift Watchers collection a bit.
Are you planning on, and feel free to answer this later, but are you planning on approaching tower defense as a player primarily, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I bought a bunch of tower defense packs, so I'll probably open maybe 80% of them and round out my collection as best I can. The remaining ones I might hold and try to resell later on after the set is sold out. We'll see. But yep, tower defense. I love tower defense games. Used to play a bunch on my phone, so I'm excited that we're getting into that genre.
Cool.
All right, I've picked my team, so let's roll the dice.
I have just submitted as well. Let me share my screen here, Cryptomancer, and let's see what is awaiting me. Let's see here. There we go. All right. Oh, I got mostly a modern lineup, but I did get a cool frost giant with a skin I've never seen before. All right. Well,
that's a tanky tank you got there. Ooh, and Rune Master foils. Ooh.
Yeah, I love these. The Earth team all of a sudden became one of my favorites, especially reverse speed.
A lot of magic power there. I may be in trouble.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing this guy kind of let loose the full gamut of his potential. So I went with Fernheart as my summoner. I got Grund leading the charge with Runemancer as the kind of secondary tank. The damp here for a little bit of triage, and hopefully I can take advantage of the knockout rule set with the stun. The Sude Shaman. Looks like Giant Killer is probably going to be a lost cause, but Rust will come in handy and some big fat magic damage from recharge. The Psychic is there for a little bit of Weaken, which looks like it might have been the right call. Some Dispel and Affliction, which is possibly going to be useful with the Crustacean King there. And then I've got slip spawn in the back, I figured it was worth sacrificing a little bit of speed for a big old taunt.
Yeah, I think I may be in trouble here. That's a pretty formidable looking lineup.
You
You
talk through
want to
yours?
All right, so I got the Frost Giant in front. He's a great alpha card for these reverse speed matches. I like him there. And then Lobstradamus makes a good supporting tanky card as well. And then I got a little bit of the heal going on there. Heal and resurrect. The Poseidon gives a nice blast damage, so I really like using that card whenever I can. And Dr. Blight is also one of my favorites. I always like to put him in the back end, and he can just make himself more powerful if he stays alive long enough.
Yeah, shout out for the gold foil. That's some fancy bling there, Cryptomancer.
Yeah, I went with a lot of armor in this team, but I think your magic is gonna show that to have been a bad choice. You went a little armor heavy, but you went magic heavy, so ouch.
Yeah, I might be in trouble. Like you did go with Lear Deep Swimmer. So my first couple guys throwing ranged and melee might have some struggles landing blows and definitely getting return fire. But let's see. You want to make an early prediction here, Cryptomancer?
Yeah, I'm gonna give this one to you. I think you're gonna swing it with your overpowering magic might there. Only way I could take it is if I get really lucky and manage to knock off a couple of your cards quickly in the first round. But given the high health, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Well, Cryptomancer, I'm going to take that and run with it as much as I can. I hope you're right. I would love to hang my hat on a win over the keys, the king to the development kingdom at Splinterlands. That would be a big win that I will not let die anytime soon.
Let's see how it goes.
All right, so we are underway here. Let's see what we got. We both got.
You've slowed down his team as well, right?
Yeah, he's
stunned him.
Oh, first stun
right from the get-go. All right, Blight landed the affliction. That's not good.
Yeah, you're gonna knock out my Frost Giant. That's
He'll get resurrected. He'll get resurrected.
I got the resurrect. Let's see
and
another hit.
And there's the blind. Oh, missed the stun.
That's good, but with that heal there, I can't do damage fast enough.
All right, so my taunt is down.
Did take out the taunter, so that's good to see.
Oh, miss. Oh, got landed the second strike
on that tank. Mr. Lizard there is a nasty one.
Yeah, I don't think they're very fond of giant lizards in Tokyo, huh?
Nope, can't say they are.
Ooh, the lizard just went down in one shot.
Lobstradamus didn't last very long. All right, so it's down to the last 4 monsters on each team here.
I think you still have enough firepower to take it.
And so we just got Poseidon and Blight as damage dealers for now. Cryptomancer floor is down.
I've got a feeling that Blight might just be the difference again.
Per usual, right?
Know. Once that Crustacean King is gone, then the Poseidon is going to be pretty well neutralized.
18.
Ooh.
Wow.
That was a heck of a hit.
that was awesome. All right, so it's just Blight. As soon as he lands the affliction, I think I'm in trouble.
I need to pray for poison damage here. Come on.
All right, so Blight's at the front with 14 health and
not looking good. I don't think I can do enough damage fast enough.
Well, I'm about to wipe out Blight with the recharge. He's about to face the full.
Nearly.
Yeah. There's the game.
All right.
Nicely played.
Thank you, sir.
Great game.
That was a great game. That came down to the wire. Thought Blight was going to come in with the awesome. Wonderful, Cryptomancer. Well, thank you again for taking the time to hop on, and it was an absolute pleasure. Like I said, hearing your journey, your stories, and you've always got an open invite to hop on at the People's Guild and talk shop with us. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. My pleasure. It was good to be here. Glad I was on the show today. Good talking to you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, honestly, I was really excited about this conversation, and it's just been everything I hoped for and more. So thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. Hope you guys have a great day, and good luck with the Rooney sale.
Yeah. Okay, guys, you have been listening to
People's Guild.